You train hard, then do nothing for 2 days. That's not recovery. That's a system with no plan. 7 days, every one with a purpose, none of them wasted. Here's exactly what each day looks like.
Day 1. Full body strength. The week opens with the hardest session, not the easiest one, not a warm-up to ease into things. Squat, row, press, deadlift. Compound movements that recruit the most total muscle mass in a single session and produce the strongest systemic response available from training. This day is positioned first for a specific reason. The central nervous system enters the week fully recovered. No accumulated fatigue from previous sessions. No compromised motor unit recruitment from residual fatigue. This is the one day where the body can absorb maximum load with maximum technical quality, which means this is where the week's primary hypertrophy stimulus and primary hormonal response get generated. Testosterone and growth hormone both spike higher after compound multi-joint movements than after isolation work. That response is largest when the nervous system is fresh, which is exactly why this session opens the week instead of getting buried in the middle of it after fatigue has already accumulated from other sessions. 3 to 4 sets per movement, 6 to 8 reps, full range of motion, 3-second controlled eccentric on every rep, no dropping, no bouncing, no shortcuts on the way down. Most men over 50 already do a session like this once a week, maybe twice if they're disciplined. They call that training. It's not training. It's one input into a system that requires 6 more. The muscle stimulated today doesn't grow today. It grows in the recovery window that follows, and what happens tomorrow determines whether that window gets used correctly or wasted on inactivity disguised as rest. The next day isn't a rest day. It's the day that determines whether today's session actually produces anything.
Day 2. Zone 2 cardiovascular. Most men do one of 2 things the day after a heavy strength session. Nothing or the same intensity again. Both are wrong. Day 2 calls for 30 to 40 minutes of Zone 2 cardio. The intensity where short sentences are possible, but singing isn't. Stationary bike, incline treadmill walk, or elliptical. Moderate, sustained, deliberately not intense. Here's the mechanism most men never learn. The heavy session from day 1 leads metabolic byproducts in the trained tissue, accumulated waste from the breakdown that triggers muscle repair. Complete inactivity the day after doesn't clear that faster. It just leaves the tissue sitting in it longer. Light, sustained movement increases blood flow to the muscle without adding new training stress, accelerating the clearance of those byproducts, and speeding up the repair process already underway. That's active recovery, not rest. Recovery that requires movement to work. Zone 2 does something else simultaneously. It builds mitochondrial density. The number of energy-producing structures inside each muscle fiber increases specifically at this intensity, not higher, not lower. More mitochondria means more efficient fat oxidation, better endurance during the next strength session, and faster recovery between every session going forward. A man who skips day 2 entirely loses the active recovery benefit. Day 2 isn't optional. It's not filler between the sessions that count. It's the day that makes day 1 worth having done. Day 3 looks even less like training than day 2 does, which is exactly why most men skip it completely, and exactly why skipping it costs them more than they realize. Want a strong and healthy body? Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button.
Day 3. Mobility and walking. This is the day men over 50 get wrong most often. Not because they overdo it, because they do nothing and call doing nothing rest. Day 3 delivers 20 to 30 minutes of active mobility work, hip, shoulder, thoracic spine, followed by 20 minutes of easy walking. No equipment required, no gym, just deliberate movement through full range, every joint that's going to be loaded again in 2 days. Here's what's actually happening physiologically when this day gets skipped. Without movement, blood flow to recovering tissue drops. Metabolic waste from day 1 session lingers longer. Joint capsules, the connective tissue surrounding every major joint, lose lubrication faster without movement because synovial fluid only circulates through motion. Stillness doesn't preserve range of motion, it erodes it. After 50, that erosion compounds faster than it did a decade ago. Skip mobility work consistently and the hips tighten, the thoracic spine stiffens, the shoulders lose overhead range, not dramatically, not all at once, but measurably, week after week. By the time it's noticeable, the squat depth has changed, the overhead press has changed, the movement quality available for day 4's heavy session has quietly degraded. This is the day that prepares the joints for the second strength session of the week, not by resting them, but by moving them through the range they're about to be asked to produce force in. The week resets here. Day 4 repeats the heaviest stimulus, and whether it actually produces a second wave of adaptation depends entirely on whether the first 3 days were respected.
Day 4, the second strength session. Day 4 repeats day 1. Full body strength, compound movements, same structure, same intent. This is only possible because of what happened in between. After 50, the central nervous system requires roughly 72 hours to fully recover from a maximal strength session, not the muscle tissue alone, the nervous system driving it. Days 2 and 3 weren't filler, they were the recovery window that makes a second heavy session on day 4 productive instead of destructive. Skip that window, train hard again on day 2 instead of doing zone 2, or skip day 3's mobility entirely, and day 4 doesn't deliver a second adaptation. It delivers accumulated fatigue, stacked on top of incomplete recovery. The lifts feel heavier than they should. Technique breaks down earlier in the set. A man who respected days 2 and 3 walks into day 4 with a nervous system ready to produce near maximal output again. That's the second hypertrophy stimulus of the week, available only to men who didn't waste the 3 days before it. Day 5, the second recovery cycle. Day 5 repeats day 2's pattern, 30 to 40 minutes of zone 2 cardiovascular work, positioned again to accelerate recovery from the heavy session that just happened. Same mechanism, same purpose, clearing metabolic byproducts from day 4's session while continuing to build the mitochondrial density that's been compounding since day 2. By the end of day 5, the week has delivered 2 full-strength sessions and 2 recovery-focused cardiovascular sessions, each one dependent on the day before it being done correctly. This is the part most men never structure. They train hard twice a week sporadically, with no relationship between the sessions, each one starting from whatever recovery state happened to exist that day, good or bad. 2 days remain, and they're the 2 days that determine whether this entire structure holds up for months or quietly falls apart the way every program eventually does.
Day 6, deep recovery. Day 6 delivers 45 to 60 minutes of comfortable walking combined with diaphragmatic breathing exercises. This isn't filler, it's the day that addresses what the other 6 days don't touch directly: accumulated cortisol. Resistance training, cardiovascular work, even active mobility, all of them place demand on the sympathetic nervous system. Across 5 days, that demand accumulates. Without a deliberate parasympathetic intervention, cortisol stays elevated longer than it should, working directly against the muscle the week's training was supposed to build. Diaphragmatic breathing, slow, controlled, extended exhale longer than the inhale, activates the vagus nerve and shifts the body from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic recovery. Combined with low-intensity walking, this session lowers circulating cortisol measurably within a single 45-minute window. Day 7, complementary strength. Days 1 and 4 covered the major compound patterns: squat, hinge, push, pull. Day 7 addresses what those sessions structurally can't: unilateral work, functional core stability, shoulder and hip stabilizers. Repeating the same compound movements 3 times a week, every week, for months creates a specific risk:
Asymmetries between left and right sides go uncorrected. Stabilizer muscles around major joints stay undertrained relative to the prime movers, and the imbalance compounds silently until it shows up as a nagging issue that gets blamed on age. Single leg work, single arm pressing and pulling, rotational core training. Direct shoulder and hip stabilizer work, lower total volume than days 1 and 4. This isn't the day for maximal loading. It's the day that fills the gap the other 2 strength sessions leave open. Monday starts the cycle again. What did you think of this video? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I actually read everything. Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button.